So today we are finding equations of a circle, and we have to write them in standard form. So the steps to do this are at the top of the page, and then we're going to do them down below. The first step is to put all of my x terms together and all of my y terms together, and move my number without a letter to the other side. So number one, I'm going to start off by adding 6 to both sides. And then I'm going to write x squared, and I'm going to put the negative 2x with it. And I'm going to write the y squared, and put the 6y with it. Then my next step is to find half of the x and y terms, the ones without the exponents. And I'm just going to find half of the number. So I'm going to do half of negative 2, which is negative 2 divided by 2. And I'm going to do the same thing for 6, which gets me 3. Okay, so then all of my x's I'm going to put together in parentheses. I'm going to have x squared minus 2x. And then I'm going to add the negative 1 squared because that came from the negative 2 in the middle. Then I'm going to go ahead and do the same thing for my y's. I'm going to put those all together in a group. And then add 3 squared because that came from the 6. And then this is going to equal 6, but I'm also, because I added the stuff in red to the left side, I have to add it to the right side to keep my equation equal. So I'm going to add negative 1 squared and add 3 squared. So then I want to actually figure out what these numbers are squared. What's negative 1 squared? One. And 3 squared is okay, then from here, I want to factor the stuff that are in parentheses. So I'm looking for what multiplies to positive 1 and adds up to negative 2. So what two numbers multiply to positive 1 and add to negative 2? Negative 1 and negative 1. So I can just write this as x minus 1 squared. And then I can do the same thing for my y's. What multiplies to 9 and adds to 6? This is going to be 3 and 3. And then what's 6 plus 1 plus 9? So notice, this negative 1 matches the negative 1 I got earlier, and this positive 3 matches the 3 I got earlier when I found half of the middle number. So these two numbers should always match these two numbers. And then this is just the equation of my circle. same idea for number 2. This one I already have my number on the other side. I just need to group like terms together. So I'm going to have x squared minus 6x plus y squared equals 7. So for this one, I want to find half of negative 6. That is negative 3. And then there is no regular y term, so I don't have to worry about y. So I'm going to have x squared minus 6x, and then I'm going to add that to negative 3 squared. And I'm also going to add that negative 3 squared to both sides of the equation. So make sure I add it with the 7. Negative 3 squared is 9. So then I'm going to go ahead and factor this. So I'm looking for what multiplies to 9 and adds to negative 6, which is negative 3 and negative 3. And then 7 plus 9 is... Okay, so number 3, they're already written in order for me. This one I want to find half of the 4. So half of 4 is 2. So the x squared part stays alone. And then I'm going to be putting my y's together in parentheses and adding 2 squared. And 2 squared is 2 times 2? 4. Oops, I wanted to factor this one. So what multiplies to 4 and adds to 4? 2. Remember, this is always that number I got up here. And then 32 plus 4? Okay, number 4, they are already grouped. No, they're not grouped for me. I need to go ahead and group them. So I'm going to have x squared minus 8x plus y squared minus 2y equals negative 16. So the ones I want to focus on finding half of are going to be negative 8 and negative 2. So then I'm going to group them together. I have x squared minus 8x, and then I'm going to add the negative 4 squared. And then I'm going to group my y squared minus 2y and add the negative 1 squared. And then this is going to equal negative 16, and then added to the negative 4 squared and the negative 1 squared. Okay, so what is negative 4 squared? Negative 4 times negative 4? 16. And negative 1 squared? 1. So what multiplies to 16 and adds to negative 8? Negative 4. What multiplies to 1 and adds to negative 2? Negative 1. And then negative 16 plus 16 plus 1? 1. So one thing I want to point out before you get started on your homework is whenever I'm completing the square, I always need my x squared and my y squared to be positive. So if they're not, I either want to move it over to the other side of the equation, or I want to go ahead and divide by negative 1 on both sides. And then today's homework